Once I had learned Vim, I was addicted to the Vim motions. Anything that was a normal buffer would actively irritate me. So I had Vim mode set up in my shell, I was using Vimium in the browser, and I'm coding in Vim, but what I really want to do is take notes in Vim. And that gets a little tricky as your needs get more sophisticated. Things start out fine. You create a folder, you organize your notes, you edit them in Vim. Maybe you even discover some Vim plugins which make markdown editing a joy. You want to back up your notes now. Okay, that's fine too. You use Git and your notes are backed up. They're available on multiple devices. But now let me share where things started to break down for me. So next challenge. There's some notes I don't want synced to GitHub in plain text. They're sensitive, they're my journal or my dream log or something like that. So that's fine. I can make a little script, and as I enter Vim, it'll decrypt the notes, and then when I exit Vim, it'll encrypt them. I can take those binary blobs and I can send them to GitHub, and I have basic end-to-end encryption in place. That's good. But now, how's this going to work when I want to collaborate with different people? Am I going to juggle a bunch of repositories, digging through GitHub's sort of access control every time I want to share something with someone? Will I be able to edit any of these things on my phone? Will anyone who's not technical be able to edit these things with me? Like the moment I need to have a shared grocery list with my wife, I'm back in Google Docs territory. Like not only am I not writing in Vim, I'm probably not even writing Markdown anymore. And so these were some of the motivations I had when I started creating Lockbook CLI. So let me show you how all of this shakes out in the Lockbook universe. On the security side of things, your documents, your file names, all the bytes you put into Lockbook are end-to-end encrypted. And Lockbook itself is open source, so you're good on that front. For collaboration, unlike repositories, vaults, or servers, you can share any document or folder with anyone on the platform. So the collaboration model is pretty flexible. And then for your collaborators, Lockbook is cross-platform, so there's an app for every device, desktop or mobile, and they each come packaged with a Markdown editor that's pretty normie friendly, so you'll have no problem editing documents with them. And if you want to learn more about the platform itself, check out episode 1. But now that you understand that the platform itself will handle some of the more complicated things for you, we can now focus on our CLI. Installing Lockbook from a package manager is pretty easy. We're in the Arch user repository, Nix packages, Homebrew, and crates.io. If your favorite package manager is missing, let us know on Discord. We also deploy portable binaries on our GitHub releases page that you can curl. And if none of those things work out, you can head over to our doc site for instructions on building from source. All right, so at this point, hopefully you're seeing a version of the CLI that looks something like this with tab completion set up. We've invested heavily in tab completions, both static and dynamic ones. In fact, we wrote our own CLI parser to power some of those experiences, but I'll talk about that in a future video. So it's worth making sure you have those set up correctly. Creating an account is also pretty easy. The command is account new, and then you can just pass a username. All right, now let's dive into creating some notes. You can create your first note using the new command, and then you can edit it using tab completions as well. So here I'm searching for the to-do note I just created, and that by default will open the editor specified by the visual or editor environment variables. So I have neovim selected here. I'm using the render markdown plugin just for some nice eye candy. Earlier when I was showing the doc site, I realized that we don't have instructions for setting up the completions if a package manager did not work out for you. So I'm adding to my to-do that that's something I want to do after this video is published. The CLI, unlike our other clients, assumes that you want to take control of a lot of these operations. So you can see me here manually doing a Lockbook sync, which is the command that will take the changes you have locally and push them to our server and make them available to your other devices. So now we have a way to edit a note using your favorite text editor and sync it to our backend. Don't underestimate the power of this. So here I'm jumping into the configuration of my window manager, and I'm using Sway, but this works for all operating systems. You can do this on Mac OS even. But I'm binding Command-Shift-T to create a new terminal, edit my to-do list, and then sync that. At the end, I also ask for confirmation just in case there were any failures. I want to see them before this window disappears. And so now if I'm on GitHub, I'm reviewing a PR, and I come across a comment that I'm not quite ready to address at this moment, I can just hit that shortcut, Command-Shift-T, and I can add the fact that I have to rebase and squash my commits on this PR to my to-do list and get back to it later. Having a frictionless way to access the scratch buffer has been something that's very valuable to me in my workflow. So that's sort of a basic example of the Lockbook edit command. Sometimes these paths for us get a little unwieldy. So one of my co-founders, Travis, has a devlog, and it's a pretty high quality document that he maintains as he's working on Lockbook, and I love browsing it in my free time. So look at this path. It's pretty monstrous, and this is actually not the right one I wanted to look at. I wanted to reference something in a prior month. So what I actually want to do is fuzzy find across my paths, and I can do that if I compose the edit command with the list command. So here you see me taking the output of Lockbook list recursive, piping it to FCF, and then passing the output of that to the edit command. I'm using the fish shell, so it might be a little bit different for you in your shell. For bash and ZSH users, you're probably going to want something like $ parentheses or backticks. So in that last example, we use stream operators to pipe paths around and pop open the Lockbook edit command, but you're not just restricted to that. You can stream out the contents of documents. You can also stream them in. And with the ability to stream documents out, you can pipe them to other programs. So here I'm taking a markdown document, the same to-do that we've been toying around with, and I'm piping it to Pandoc, which will generate a PDF for me. Now, I'm not a big LaTeX user, but you can see the power of this with something like PDF LaTeX instead of Markdown. Sometimes you don't want to be fussing around with streams. You just want to copy bytes in and out of the file system. And so Lockbook supports that too. Using the export command, I can copy any file or folder from Lockbook to my file system, and I can do the opposite on the way back. So here you see my whole Lockbook is replicated on my disk, and I can go in here and I can make a new document, edit it a bit, and then I can do the opposite on the way back, and I can copy those bytes back into my Lockbook using the copy command. And you can see now those bytes have safely made it into my Lockbook. Now this is the thing I'm most excited to show off. It's a little experimental. There are still some kinks to work out, but it's a file system implementation backed by Lockbook, which makes your whole Lockbook show up like a flash drive on your file system. So if I pop open a graphical file browser and navigate to /tmp/Lockbook, I can now explore my Lockbook as if it was a mounted flash drive. So at some point I want to get into 3D printing, but for now, I'm just learning the design process. So this is a little part that I'm trying to design, which is the tool hanger for an obscure tool I have. And this is a great use case for Lockbook FS. All the file operations that this program is doing, saving, writing, listing files, they're all being served from within Lockbook. These bytes aren't copied to and from the disk. This is probably my favorite addition to the Lockbook CLI. And once it becomes more stable, I can see a future where this is directly incorporated into a bunch of our desktop apps. So, you double click on a file, and if we don't have a corresponding configured experience with it, we can just open it using whatever your operating system would normally open it with, allowing you to edit those bytes transparently. This is just scratching the surface of what our CLI can do. We built it with the idea that when there's lots of ways to get info in and out of Lockbook, whatever your workflow, automation, pipeline, or access on some remote or obscure machine, whatever you need to do, the CLI will allow you to do it. And as a result, your second brain will grow stronger because of this platform survivability. So give it a shot and let us know what you think on Discord. The CLI is just one of the tools we use to make Lockbook the most extensible note-taking app around. If you want to learn a little bit more about Lockbook SDK and how we use that in our whole platform, check out episode 2. In an upcoming video, I'll talk about all the ways you can extend Lockbook. Maybe we'll make something like a blog that updates itself from within Lockbook. If that sounds interesting, hit subscribe. And in the meantime, thank you for watching.